Meanwhile, Patrick, this is background noise for a midterm election campaign that really got started this week, but that's not what this campaign is about. In fact, it's not clear what this campaign is really going to be about. It's a little confused.
We're a couple months from the election, and if 2006 was about Iraq and 2010 was about the Obamacare, 2014, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of candidates on both sides of the aisle are kind of trying to make it a hodgepodge of anything. You see the ads going up each week, and it's just a different theme after a different theme. It is the, to use the spaghetti on the wall analogy, I mean, I think they are kind of throwing everything at voters on the hopes that something kind of sticks. But I do think that the underlying theme of the election is not what we're hearing from politicians, but rather what we're hearing from voters, which is anger and frustration, which we've seen, but it just seems to be building and building and building. And you know, you keep adding, we've had a lot of domestic debates now. We're kind of opening the door on the foreign policy front, and there's just a lot of things to make Americans feel insecure, and this is yet another thing, and there don't seem to be clear responses from Washington to any of these questions, from the president, from Republicans on the Hill, from Democrats on the Hill, and it's just made it a very difficult terrain for incumbent members of Congress. But also, neither party really seems to have a clear advantage going into the fall, and instead we're kind of focusing on smaller issues, which I think probably inures to the Democrats' favor because Republicans really want to make this all about the president. But I think it's, you know, we're late enough in the game, we should know what this election is about, and at this point there's nothing obvious to point to.
Is there a sense that that's going to suppress voter turnout, or is there enough anger that people might actually want to go and throw out incumbents, which is unusual?
Well, it's a really good question, and I think the answer will end up determining who does well in the fall. We don't know. The early primary turnout has been historically low, almost across the board in basically every state.
Really
so
abysmally low in some places.
Abysmally low in some places. So I think if that's the harbinger, then we'll probably have really low turnout, which probably would benefit the Republicans. At the same time, in polling, you see this like record level of anger. So there is this sense that maybe they could go, there will be a mass movement to vote people out. But we asked in one of our last polls, are you angry enough to carry a protest sign for one day? And, you know, response is yes, was overwhelming majority, but the answers were all over the board. So it's, you know, what do you want to protest? Everyone has a different idea. And, you know, a lot of it was breaking on partisan lines. You know, liberals wanted to protest Republican obstruction, conservatives wanted to protest the new health care law. But there was just no unifying theme, and so that leads me, you know, if I were a betting man, I would probably say that turnout will be very low on election day because there's no cogent alternative to whatever people are angry about. And, you know, that could change, but we really don't have a lot of time between now and election day.
Which probably does work to Democrats' detriment and Republicans' benefit, but the weird thing is, you know, historically the second midterm of a two-term presidency is tough for the incumbent party. That's true, but I don't think the outlying party, in this case the Republicans, has ever been as near the bottom of the public opinion barrel as Republicans are now, so I think you can throw out the history.
Completely. As unpopular as the president is, congressional Republicans are much, much less popular.
It's a real race to the bottom there.
Well, yeah, totally. And it's by like a 15, 20-point margin in a lot of the polls that you look at. So no, the Republican brand is really damaged. They're particularly damaged among women, which is a huge problem for them right now. They won women in 2010 narrowly. Right now, in almost every poll you see of generic ballot, they're down, you know, 10 to 20 points. So that's a big issue for them. We've seen this week finally some Republicans are starting to push back, but they're really just trying to kind of deal with the damage and kind of minimize the loss on election day. But
so we'll talk more about this political race to the bottom next week, and more on ISIS obviously as well, and more on Capitol Journal. Hope you'll join us. Meantime, you can join the conversation on Twitter at #WSJLive. I'm Jerry Seib.